Hi, everyone. Welcome to Law and Crime Network. I'm Michelle Yu. Thanks for joining us. We have a lot to cover today, but we're going to begin with the Idaho college student murders case involving defendant Bryan Kohberger. A new defense filing revealed deeper insight into the alibi of the quadruple murder suspect, and they even offered to call an expert. And if you're new to the case, Kohberger is accused of stabbing 4 Idaho college students to death in an off-campus home in November of 2022. Investigators initially traced the killings back to Kohberger through DNA found on a knife sheath found at the crime scene. But part of the prosecution's case also stems from cell phone location data, allegedly placing Kohberger's phone near the home before and after the murders. However, the defense is now offering to call a cell phone tower and radio frequency expert to help corroborate their theory that Kohberger was located 10 miles away when the murders took place. His defense team has already argued that Kohberger liked to take long drives at night by himself, but they believe he was driving south of Pullman, Washington, and west of Moscow, Idaho, because he often liked to see the moon and stars at that location. Now, keep in mind, the court entered a not guilty plea for Kohberger, and the case won't go to trial until at least next year. So let's discuss how this alibi defense might hold up here. And we have a trial attorney, Ian Chaikin, and law and crime analyst Brian Buckmeyer in the house with us to share their thoughts on this new development. Ian, I'm going to start with you here. Let's, according to the probable cause affidavit, Kohberger owned a 2015 Hyundai Elantra, matching the description of a vehicle seen near the crime scene on the night of the killings. Couple that with the DNA from the knife sheath allegedly tracing back to him. Does the cell phone location data still matter here?
Well, the cell phone location data always is going to matter. It is a defense that they're going to rely on. But the prosecution has had that. They've been well aware that there's going to be cellular data facts being presented in this case. It's late to the game, pre-trial obviously, but late to the game. I believe it's a Hail Mary, but they're going to give it a shot. And if they can actually convince a jury that he was not there by the location, then they got a good argument. But I'm sure the prosecution has already crossed all their T's and dotted all their I's when it comes to that specific fact.
Yeah, I don't think a lot of people saw this one coming at all. And this one's for you, Brian. The affidavit also says that Kohberger's phone was either turned off or on airplane mode around the time of the killings, but it was suggested that he was heading near the off-campus home. I mean, how do you dispute that with an expert?
I think with an expert, you have to try to expand the possibility of it only being turned off or on airplane mode. I, for example, live in upstate New York, and if I'm making a call, and anyone outside of a metropolitan area knows you're making a call, your phone will lose reception for a period of time. And so I think if the defense can articulate that this is a rural area, and just because a phone isn't connecting to a tower, it doesn't mean nefarious actions are occurring. It could be very well that you are driving from one point to another where you're losing cell phone service, and that's what's happening. If they can introduce evidence or suggestions like that, then I think their case becomes a little bit easier, but still, it is a very, very uphill battle to try to prove that Kohberger is not guilty because of the so many different areas of arguments that prosecutors can make, whether it be the sheath, the DNA, the cell phone. It's a lot to push back on.
Well, one more thing, Brian. I mean, what will the defense need to show in order to make this a strong alibi? I mean, what will the expert present for their case?
So the defense will start off by saying, don't need to show anything, that they don't have a burden. They're going to say, at best, we have to simply create reasonable doubt. And through an expert being able to differentiate between the prosecution's expert, this might be a case of the battle of experts. And we've seen this multiple times where one expert says, hey, this is what the cell phone data tells me. Cell phone is pinging off a tower, and we can articulate from the time that it moves from point A to point B that he must have been traveling, as you can see here on the map, in this specific direction. And then the other expert for the defense will come up and say, yes, but me interpreting this data, I can show you a different path. I would bet that the defense's expert is going to come up and show a very different map. And then the question is it reasonable? Does it create doubt? And if it's enough, then that might be one aspect as to why a juror might say, maybe not guilty.
Ian, the prosecution plans to provide more discovery evidence to the defense on Kohberger's location around the time of the murders, where else could that location data be extracted from apart from a cell phone?
Well, the cell phone tower and the cell phone records are going to indicate where he was at. And that is valid discovery. That is facts that they're going to use in the case. But that's not what the story is about. They're going to have a very difficult time with the DNA evidence that they have specific to that murder scene. And they can battle that with the experts with regard to which tower pinged the cell phone or not. But the DNA data that was at the scene is going to be very, very hard to overcome.
Bryan, what are your thoughts on that?
So I'm getting creative here, and I don't disagree with Ian. Like, this is a difficult case. So me giving devil's advocate to what Ian's saying is not for me to say that he's wrong. It's just saying this is how I would argue it. DNA simply proves the presence of someone's DNA or skin cells that are there, but it doesn't necessarily mean that Bryan Kohberger had the knife sheath at that location at the time of the murders. And if they can come up with a non-laughable excuse as to why a knife sheath would be at a party house and someone believes it, as we say as defense attorneys, it takes just one. But there are so many aspects of this case that point to Bryan Kohberger's guilt in this trial. It's going to be hard to try to knock out each and every one of them, but you still got to make that try as a defense attorney.
Now, Bryan, before we wrap this up, Ian said that this was a bit of a Hail Mary here, this new development. Do you agree?
Oh, I agree wholeheartedly with Ian. This is a Hail Mary, but I'll add a little bit more to it. This is a Hail Mary that you're throwing at the 10-yard line, like your own 10-yard line. Have I seen people make that throw and make that catch? Absolutely. But it's very, very hard, and very, very few people make it. So we'll see if they can pull it off.
All right. It remains to be seen. And of course, we are locked in on all of this as it continues to develop. Bryan, Ian, thank you for that, weighing in. Great analysis, as always. All right, we're going to have to take a quick break here on Law and Crime. We're going to continue to cover this high-profile case out of Moscow, Idaho, from gavel to gavel. And in the meantime, we will see you on the other side of the break. We'll be back right after this.